Hello everybody, welcome back to Yard Sale Squad. So in today's Frugal Tip Friday, which occurs once a month, we are going to be talking about some meal planning. More specifically, we are going to be talking about how to really get the most out of your food and how to conserve things so that whenever you buy your groceries, you actually know that you're going to be using all of them. So this video won't be totally exhaustive. There will be lots more tips, and I certainly want to hear from you guys in the comments. But let's go ahead and hop in, and I'm going to share some of these tips with you. But first, before we get started, if you have been watching my videos, if you've been enjoying my channel, would you do me a favor and would you click that subscribe button? I'm kind of near a big marker that I would like to hit by the end of February, if at all possible. That's kind of a little goal of mine. So if you are not already subscribed, I would love to have you be a part of our family and stick around here. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about some food conservation. So really the things that I like to share most here are things that enrich my life and that I think will enrich the lives of other people. I don't want to ever assume that anything that I share is something that's common knowledge or something that is already known by everyone. I know that I have a lot of people that watch that are seasoned in the kitchen, that cook, that already know a lot of these tips. But I also know that I have some girls that are new to cooking and they are just kind of learning the ropes. And the idea of shopping and planning and cooking and storing, all of that can kind of feel very overwhelming if you've never done it before. Like anything, it gets easier with time, it gets easier with planning, and I am still constantly learning how to do new things and how to serve my kitchen, serve my family better. If you want to know more about our specific meal planning and shopping routine and why and how we shop 2 weeks at a time, I already made a video on that and I will link that down below. It kind of answers some of the questions that you may have about produce and things expiring and running out of things, all that type of thing. But I wanted to show you that we just completed a 2-week grocery haul, and usually my goal is to stay under $200 for that 2 weeks. So ending up about $100 per week spent on groceries at Aldi. And I wanted to show you, this was our most recent receipt. And this is a pretty typical amount for us. So we're a family of 4 and we do some other supplemental shopping at other places, but our bulk of our food comes from Aldi. So this is a good chunk of our 2-week grocery budget. So if this is interesting to you, if this is encouraging to you, then keep watching. So you've already seen some of this footage in a video that I uploaded of a day in our kitchen, but whenever we get home from that 2-week grocery trip, it's a little bit of a challenge, I guess you would say. I just have to take some time to put things away intentionally.
Let me help you. Oh, easy.
Of course, it always helps to have little hands around that are willing to help with the tasks, that are happy to help. I always put on some good music or a good podcast, and then I just get to work putting things away in a way that makes sense. I really try to pay attention to expiration dates, and I really try to organize things and make things so that they're easy to see and easy to find. All right, go play your drum over there.
Okay.
Good girl. So again, I'm not going to do a full video of that here, but if you want to see a tour of our pantry, I'll link that down below. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about is whenever you are cooking, I think something that is so important is figuring out, what am I going to do with the things that I have left? So that can just be a really good question to ask yourself is, whenever I get finished cooking, first of all, what am I going to do with the half of the onion, the 1/4 of the pepper, this extra seasoning mix that I mixed up, but I don't really need all of it. Maybe I opened a box of broth, but I only used 2 cups where a normal box of broth has 4 cups in it. It's all those different little decisions that can sometimes feel overwhelming because cooking in itself can be a task, and especially if we're busy, if we're moving on to the next thing, we want to just step away and we want to be done. Of course, the easier route would be to take all of that extra stuff and just throw it in the trash. But you could potentially take those things and use those as the foundation for another meal. So I've talked about a lot of these tips, but I wanted to just kind of have a central location for all of them. So here's a few of my tips. All right, number one, we're going to talk about produce. I'm a huge fan of chopping and freezing. Lots of things freeze really well. You can look and find lists online, but just a few of the things that freeze really well are produce, baked goods, whole meals, things like soups or meatloafs, individual things like burritos or burgers or wraps. There are lots of things that freeze really well. So with produce, I'm always a fan of going ahead and chopping in advance. So let's say I go on that 2-week grocery haul and I have a 3-pack of bell peppers. If I only have a clear purpose for one of those peppers or 2 of those peppers, instead of letting that other one sit in the fridge until it becomes soft and potentially moldy and then I feel like I need to throw it away, I'm going to try, if I can, to go ahead and chop those or slice those in advance. They freeze really nicely in a Ziploc bag or in a Tupperware container, even a glass container, and then the work is already done for you. Same thing with an onion. There are a lot of recipes that begin with sauteing half of a diced onion. So what do you do with the other half of the diced onion? Well, for a lot of us, it goes to the fridge to die. We don't use it. It just sits there, and then there's the question of, I don't even remember when this was from. Does it start to get kind of like juicy and gross in the fridge? Well, if you go ahead and you've already got your cutting board, you've already got your knife, go ahead and chop that other half of the onion and then put it in a container, put it in a bag in the fridge. This works beautifully. In addition, you can do this on its own. You can do this just for the ingredients, or you can go ahead and put them in a freezer meal. So I could take those extra peppers and onions and slice them and then combine them with some kielbasa sausage, and then there I have a sheet pan meal ready to go. There are so many different applications of this. But again, the first question is, what am I going to do with these extra things? All right, another one is, like I mentioned, extra broth. So an average box of broth has 4 cups in it. One thing that I will mention is I have a soup recipe in particular that calls for 5 cups of broth. Instead of opening additional broth, what I do is use the box, and then I will fill the box with a little bit of water and swirl it around, and then that is my like 5th cup of broth. And it's watered down broth, but it's still making sure that I empty out that box, and then I don't have to open another can or another box. But if you do find yourself with a little broth left, there are a couple of things that you can do. One is simply to write on the top when you opened it, and then you can look in the fridge and keep it kind of to the front of the fridge. So you know in the next couple of days you need to make a soup or a roast or maybe some sort of sauce from scratch using that broth. But another thing that you can do is freeze this in individual portions. An ice cube tray works really well for this, and then you can put those again in a bag or in a container and then just pull them out as you need them. Another really good example of this is tomato paste. I know you can get tomato paste in the tube, but again, most of our shopping is done at Aldi and they don't sell tomato paste in the tube, at least not currently when I'm making this. So what I have started doing is portioning that out onto wax paper. I don't know that this is like the best way to do this, but this is a way to do it, and I can tell you that it worked just fine. So I did a good healthy tablespoon, and I just put it in piles, and then I cut those little sections and stacked them together. I put them in a Ziploc bag, and now whenever a recipe calls for a tablespoon, I can go ahead and pull that out. Another thing that we can talk about is making things in bulk. So I've done a little bit of this, but I really would like to get into this more. So one example is taco seasoning. I usually don't buy a taco seasoning packet. I normally just make my own because I already have those spices. But one thing that I did recently was I got some really pretty containers from the thrift store. I cleaned them up, washed them really well, and they have an airtight seal. So one of them I used for taco seasoning. And now instead of each time that I need taco seasoning having to mix up a new batch, I already have 2 or 3 recipes worth in this container. I've recently seen examples of this with pancake mix and with brownie mix, going ahead and making your own homemade mix and then storing it in a nice glass container. And that's something that you're going to be seeing from me really soon. I'm really excited to try out that idea. I did talk about expiration dates in that 2-week video that I talked about, but basically part of my grocery shopping routine is that when I get home with my groceries, I check the expiration dates on those things that are going to expire, especially meat and bread. If the expiration date shows that it's going to be close to or after the date that I've planned that particular meal, I'll just go ahead and pop it in the freezer. Bonus tip, I think that it's so great to prepare any meat ahead of time. So for example, if I buy a large pack of chicken breast, I can go ahead and look at my meal plan and say, okay, on Thursday, I'm making butter chicken. That means that I need diced chicken. And next Tuesday, I'm making cilantro lime chicken, which is pieces of chicken breast that have been cut in half so they're thinner. I will go ahead and prepare that chicken if I can, if I have the time. I'll go ahead and prep it and then put it in the freezer. And then sometimes I'll even label on the bag the specific meal that that chicken is for. And it's just another example of what we did with the onion. You've already got the cutting board out. You've already got the knife out. Let's go ahead and chop all this at one time. Let's go ahead and batch this whole thing and just make it a little easier and really use our time well. This next one is very practical, but if my kids leave a lot of food on their plate, I make them wrap it and put it in the fridge, and they will have to eat it for another meal. And I know that this may not be for everybody, but you know what? They have learned this. And just today, my son said, oh yeah, I want my breakfast casserole that I left, a day or two before. So instead of teaching them just to throw all of their food in the trash, we will do that if it's just like a bite here or there. But if it's a substantial amount of food on their plate, I teach them to wrap it up and put it in the fridge. And that's another meal that I don't have to worry about. If you know me very well, that's the same thing that I feel about food at a restaurant. Even if you have half a serving of rice left, even if you have all of your vegetables left, or maybe part of your burger, take that home, and that can be a portion of a meal tomorrow or sometime this week. I think I just feel like food is such a big part of our life and such a big part of our budget, and I don't want to waste a single cent of that if I can help it. All right, you guys, well, I'm sure I could come up with more tips, but at the moment, that's really all that I can think of. Again, I probably am going to share an updated week in our life or 2 week in our life of what our meals look like. But I just wanted to kind of give you some of those helpful tips and talk to you about how we really stretch our groceries and try to make them count. So if you guys have any questions or any comments, please leave those down below. And again, if you haven't already subscribed, would you please click that red subscribe button? I would really love to have you stick around. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be talking to you in the next video.